Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going on a seriously fascinating journey into the deep, subconscious triggers that drive the choices we make literally every single day. If you've ever walked away from a situation and thought, wait, why on earth did I just agree to that? Well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to unpack the hidden mechanisms of human behavior that shape our decisions.
So, let's kick things off with a question we've all probably asked ourselves at some point. Why do we buy things we totally do not need? We all know we should be rational consumers, but modern society makes that, honestly, incredibly challenging. Think about it. Sometimes we willingly stand in a giant 3-hour line just for a cup of coffee. Or, look at the frenzied rush around the holidays to grab heavily discounted stuff we have absolutely no use for. And the worst part? Half the time, we have no idea why we put ourselves through it. We literally ask ourselves, why am I spending so much time on this? Or what am I even going to do with this thing? But hey, don't worry, this isn't just a you problem. It's actually a very common pattern of human behavior.
To answer these questions, we're turning to our source material for today's explainer, the seminal book Influence by Robert B. Cialdini. Now, what's really interesting here is the author himself. Robert Cialdini is a famous social psychologist, right? He's a globally renowned authority on persuasion. But despite studying psychology for a living, he found that he kept getting easily fooled. He was constantly falling into the traps of salespeople, vendors, you name it. So to figure out why this kept happening to him, he dedicated his research to persuasion and obedience techniques. He eventually wrote this exact book just to reveal why we say yes.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, the psychology of compliance. Second, the 6 principles of influence. Third, the principle of reciprocity. And finally, the reject, then retreat strategy.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the psychology of compliance, uncovering our brain's hidden vulnerabilities.
So the absolutely crucial thing to understand is that, just to simplify our lives, our brains have formed patterns of automatic behavior. Think of it kind of like an autopilot mode. We encounter so much information every single day that our brains desperately need shortcuts. You just press the button and it runs automatically. In certain situations, we just react instinctively, unconsciously. I mean, we simply don't have the time or the mental energy to analyze every tiny detail of every single situation, right? So we rely on these automatic patterns. But, and here's the catch, because of this automatic behavior, we become incredibly vulnerable. We fall into intentional influence traps and end up complying with others without even thinking twice.
Let's look at how that autopilot vulnerability works in real life. Say we're shopping for a new TV, and we're looking at different prices. Instantly, our brain engages that mental shortcut. We see a cheaper TV, and we automatically assume it means lower quality. Then we look at the expensive TV, and our brain tells us, well, a higher price surely guarantees better quality. We don't always take the time to compare the internal specs or read 100 reviews, right? We just let the price tag make the decision for us. That right there, that is your brain pressing the autopilot button. Which brings us to the core definition we really need to understand today. What exactly is influence? Well, it's the ability to change others' minds and behavior in a way that others will readily accept. It is the ultimate tool that businesses and persuasion experts use all the time to obtain our compliance. They know exactly how our autopilot works, and they know exactly which buttons to press so that we just readily accept their terms.
Moving on to Section 2, 6 Principles of Influence, the Marketer's Playbook Revealed. So, Cialdini's research uncovered 6 main psychological principles hidden behind our obedient behavior. They are reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. Businesses and persuasion experts use these 6 principles constantly, and by understanding them, you don't just gain insight into the secrets of their compliance traps, you actually learn how to protect yourself. You can make more rational choices and even improve your own ability to influence others. All right, Section 3, the principle of reciprocation, the hidden cost of a free sample. Let's define this concept clearly. The principle of reciprocation says that, by our very nature, we feel obliged to return the favors that another person has done for us. Now, what's absolutely mind-blowing is why this exists in the first place. According to anthropologists and sociologists, this kind of reciprocal repayment is actually the foundation for the successful development of human society and civilization. Back in ancient times, reciprocity ensured that our ancestors could safely exchange the resources and skills they were lacking. It created the essential bonds needed to establish communities. It massively enhanced human productivity. So, this isn't just some modern marketing gimmick. It's a deeply, deeply ingrained survival mechanism.
But let's connect this ancient survival trait to modern times. When we're shopping at the supermarket, we often see salespeople offering free samples, maybe a small cup of coffee or a little piece of cake. Seems completely harmless, right? But what actually happens next? Well, some people feel immense guilt if they just eat the sample and walk away. That ancient survival mechanism just kicks right in. They feel this overwhelming urge to buy the product just to return the favor. This free trial marketing method is actively weaponizing the principle of reciprocity to practically guarantee your compliance.
Let's look at a really structured example of this, the brilliant trial package method used by Amway, the household and personal care company. Here's exactly how their salespeople apply this principle. Step 1. They offer potential customers a trial package of things like deodorizers, insect killers, or window cleaners to use for 24, 48, or 72 hours. And they explicitly state there is absolutely no cost or obligation, none. Step 2, the customer uses some of the products, and because they've consumed them, they start to feel indebted. Then, Step 3, when the salesperson returns to pick up the trial package, that feeling of obligation practically guarantees that the customer is going to place an order. Then, the salesperson simply takes the leftover trial products right next door and repeats the whole process. The crazy thing about this principle is that it doesn't even matter if you dislike the person. Even if they're completely unwelcome, if they offer us a small favor first, the probability that we'll comply with their request just skyrockets.
Now for Section 4, Reject, then Retreat Strategy, the illusion of compromise.
To really illustrate this one, let me set the scene with a personal anecdote, straight from our author, Robert Cialdini. One day, while he was just minding his own business walking down the street, he had an encounter with an 11 or 12-year-old boy. The boy was a Boy Scout, and he stopped Cialdini to try and sell him a ticket for the annual Boy Scout circus.
Now consider the financial stakes at play here, $5 versus $1. The Boy Scout originally asked Cialdini to buy a circus ticket for $5. Well, Cialdini had absolutely zero interest in going to a circus, so he firmly refused. No thanks. But the interaction didn't end there. After the $5 ticket was rejected, the boy dropped his price to a $1 option.
Here is exactly what happened next. The initial request was the $5 circus ticket, which was refused. The boy then immediately followed up by saying, "Well, if you don't want to buy any tickets, how about buying some of our big chocolate bars? They're only $1 each." This was the retreat offer. And guess what? Cialdini accepted. He handed over $2 for 2 chocolate bars. And it wasn't until afterward that he realized the trap he'd just fallen into. He wasn't even interested in chocolate bars, yet he had just bought 2 of them.
So why did a literal psychology expert buy chocolate he didn't even want? Well, it all comes back to this core idea. Once you accept the kindness of others, you can't help feeling obliged. The author points out that this approach is basically a compromise process fueled by, you guessed it, the principle of reciprocity. When that Boy Scout backed down from the $5 ticket to the $1 chocolate bar, that concession felt like a personal kindness. It felt like the boy was doing Cialdini a favor by backing off his initial demand. And because of that ancient autopilot installed in our brains, once you accept the kindness of a concession, you feel deeply obliged to compromise in return. You match their retreat with a retreat of your own, going straight from no to yes.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. But I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. Who pressed your autopilot button today? Really think about it. Reflect on your own recent purchases, the little favors you've agreed to, and the compromises you've made. Were they truly irrational choices, or was someone utilizing the ancient survival mechanism of reciprocation against you? Simply understanding this first principle completely transforms how you navigate the world. And remember, this is just the first of the 6 principles in the marketer's playbook. There are 5 more subconscious triggers just waiting to be unpacked. Until next time, keep your autopilot in check and stay curious.